Hey everybody, so today we're going to take a look at a broadsword bout, do a little bit of analysis. It's from our open house here, and I'm fencing Wyatt, my co-instructor and one of the longest time broadsword fencers in the club here. So let's take a look.
There's a little contact, I don't know. What's there? Okay.
So first thing that happens there is a little bit of movement and feints. You can see I'm doing kind of a mix of a few different things here. So I'm usually in mostly a medium guard here. And although the Broadsword Masters kind of talk crap about it sometimes, they all get you to start there. So that's the first initial phase, and it's kind of like a similar process as Italian rapier. It's also in French small sword in the period. If you look at De la Touche or other authors, they basically recommend this whole phase of like finding the sword. Broadsword is really no different than that. So you start off in a medium position before you know really which side his point is on. At that range, there's no crossing, right? So you're both kind of in absence of blade searching, and a medium guard is really good for that. And I started adopting it more so because Godfrey recommends doing so. But if you look at any of the broadsword masters, the medium guard is in there before you find out what side they're really on. So that's what I'm using most of the time. The other guard that I'm using sometimes is I'm traversing into a wide guard. So this is the older style of broadsword that I'm using. And that's pretty much mostly what I use. There will be some bits and pieces from later styles. But here I end up getting kind of like the ultimate thing here in broadsword. This is like really the core of broadsword fencing. Kind of a cut with opposition there is what I go for. It ends up, in this one, I start the cut with opposition. His blade skips off, it ends up hitting him in the head, and I lean back out of the way. It's funny, that lean is actually found in, it's called a slip. That lean is found in Lonergan. He talks about leaning the head back like that, so you can slip cuts. They do it in Modern Saber too. So I end up going for a cut with opposition, not really getting the opposition, but I hit him on the head anyway. So let's keep on going here. Good. So there we go. I finally get what I'm searching for there, but that's kind of the picture perfect thing to happen. So it's feints, and they're usually done by moulinets over the head or coupes. So the tighter they are, Lonergan says, the less force that they'll have, but the safer they are, right? So I'm kind of doing why it's a tough cookie. He's difficult to crack sometimes. So if I do too big of a feint, sometimes he'll counterattack, and I may not have time. But I'm doing smaller ones so that I can parry if I need to. So it's kind of like a double feint there. Ends up being a cut over with opposition. So you can see he ends up going for that counterattack. I'm feinting side to side with a waiting motion. He goes for that counterattack, and I end up getting it anyway. So because I forced opposition there, I'm locking out his sword. All the sources talk about that. Locking out a sword, hit him in the head. So whether he counterattacks or goes for the parry, it's probably going to blast through. So then starting with traversing, moving side to side, that can kind of throw people off or at least buy you time. And that one there, that was fourth position from Sinclair. So basically what it is it's an inside cut to the arm. It's just a slip to the leg here. So I'm confident in my guard there, so I let him get a little bit closer because I'm trying to work off the riposte. And the thing you got to train in broadsword is always be ready for leg snipes. So he goes for that leg snipe there, and it's an inside. You can see it goes into a hanging position for a second there, if I can get to pause on the right frame. But I had it for a sec, it's gone. Boom, but it goes into like a hanging position, like a half circle position on the inside there. And that's called fourth position. It's used against inside cuts to the leg, and it collides with his arm. So there's a ton of force on it, even though it's not a very big motion. It's a really great cut.
Good luck. You're going to go run first. Totally going to use you to shield.
So that one's called second position. It's another one of the slips that we do here. So this is a kind of an interesting one. Wyatt, it was hanging out for a little while in St. George, but he ends up doing a series of pretty neat feints there. So he's hanging out in St. George. That's actually an engaging guard used by McBain in his Spadroon section. So what he's doing there is totally historical. It's not super common, but it ends up being almost like open fight for silver. But anyway, so he goes for a couple feints here. But I could see that I was kind of in a position where I was luring him to hit the leg, and my guard was solid there. So I can see as I'm leaning back, and I open up the space so I have time to see it coming, and boom, slip the leg, and the shot goes straight down to the top of the head, and that's what's called second position in Sinclair. It's just a straight shot down. It's the same leg slip as before, but the cut comes at a different angle.
Oh, nice. So I know we have owners. Where they are.
Boom. So classic feint there. Let's take a look at that again. Oop. So inside, I'm trying to drop the inside, right? And then shoot down straight to the leg, just on the edge of distance so that I'm not so deep that I'm going to get hit afterwards. It's an easy recovery after that. It's not overcommitted. And the thing that I'm doing here is I'm changing on the lunge to really sell it. Changing on the lunge, it can be risky, doing disengages on the lunge. And most of the time when you're a beginner, you learn how to feint without lunging and you lunge at the very end. But changing on the lunge is a really good skill. And again, Sinclair talks about that in some of his feints with appels, is you make the extension earlier on and you're changing as you're moving forward. So that can be done with a step, an appel, or just straight up on the lunge. So this is super convincing for him that I'm going to attack. The downside is that sometimes with a full weight broadsword, it slows down the attack a bit. So sometimes my attack is landing after the footfalls, which is a little bit less than ideal, but it's pretty close anyway. It's not very far behind. It ends up being a good cut with a nice recovery. So that's just like a beautiful attack that happens there. So I end up going for it. So he goes for a feint. I end up pairing that really nicely with opposition. And I thought for sure I was going to get him here because I go for a real quick parry riposte, or a riposte with opposition right at the top of the head. But he brings the hilt up into kind of like a septime position. Boom. Right. And the problem is that because I thought I was going to get that, I don't lower my hand enough. I get a little bit cocky and I leave my guard high because I think he's out of position. He's not at all. And he fires a beautiful external like arm cut there that hits me. That's gorgeous. That's really good fencing in the front line.
3-1.
That wide position going to medium. Wide outside guard. And the traversing, just buying me time so that he has to adjust every time he doesn't get comfortable. And then I fight in the line and outside the line. I went for a push cut there. It wasn't super convincing, so we just kind of keep going. So that one there, it ends up being a cut with opposition. So the key is you have to be really precise with them. And here I end up getting like a nice cut with opposition, but his sword skips off and it ends up going into my wrist. So it's still opposition with the wrist, but I probably would have taken a little bit of a cut there, although the impact from his initial cut would have all been taken off by the basket. He gets me there immediately on the wrist.
You might have. Just a light drop. Okay. Yeah, let's just throw it out.
Throw that one out. I kind of paused when I shouldn't have because I thought I'd grab him. So that's a classic, and this really illustrates like a good point that's brought out in some sources, which is you don't want to feint too fast, right? What I'm trying to do is with my feint is I'm trying to get a reaction. If I always do those like small waiting motions, like the tiny coupe feints, sometimes it's not enough. So what I do here is like a nice slow attack to kind of draw a reaction, and then cut to the top of the head with opposition, and I have a ton of force swinging in with that. So that wide kind of outside guard here. And what that was a technique from Roworth where you cut into a thrust, right? So you start as a cut and you push forward with the point of the thrust. And it ends up cutting, or it's like cutting with a point almost. You end up thrusting their arm with that. And that's the bout.